Welcome to the Awakened Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Get ready to create magic and miracles as you lean into your heart's desires. I believe not only does the heart want what it wants, but it knows. This show is a weekly deep dive into what it means to live from an awakened heart. I'll be sharing inspiring stories and real conversations with people just like you, who have turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. My mission is to show you how you too can be connected and heart-centered in every area of your life. Your journey to aligning with more love, more joy, and your wildest dreams come true starts now. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Awakened Heart Podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to Robin Johnson, also known as the Heart Whisperer. Robin's sole purpose is to create a safe and nurturing space for healing, a journey that began with her own transformation, ending a 20-year battle with depression. Robin is a professional certified life coach and the founder of the Heart Coach Institute, an internationally accredited program that trains and certifies heart-centered life coaches around the globe. Drawing from her extensive training in heart-centered therapy and trauma release, Robin also developed the Bravehearts Program, which has helped hundreds of people heal their hearts, release the pain of their past, and create futures filled with love and purpose. Beyond her coaching work, Robin is a dynamic speaker and an author. Her much-anticipated book, The Heart of the Gospel, Transforming Your Relationship with Jesus, released this past September. On a personal note, Robin's love story is one for the books. She fell in love with her husband at just 13 years old, and they've been together for 36 beautiful years. Together, they have 4 amazing children who inspire them daily. In this episode, Robin shares her journey of healing and faith, the power of heart-centered living, and how embracing love and vulnerability can transform our lives. Join us as we delve into her insights, wisdom, and her mission to help others heal and thrive. Hi, Robin. Welcome to the Awakened Heart Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been so excited for this.
I know I loved your response to my email regarding you being on the website about how you're like, I love the name of your podcast. It just came across so like excitedly, and I loved it. Yeah. So I'm like, you wrote a really nice intro for yourself. And we are talking about something that's so important nowadays because so many of us live from the eyes and ears up. Somebody explained this to me. We're not living like on the vertical where we're grounded to the earth and, picking up divine energy. We're living like from the ears up, and we need to live more in our body and really listen to more of our heart intelligence. And I find, even from my own personal experience and what's going on in the world, we're so in our heads that we're having a hard time connecting to our heart, which our heart is our inner wisdom, our gut, having coherence with the heart and the mind. And, that's really where all miracles can manifest, because you have a coherence between the two, and it goes really out into the field. And it's actually been registered and measured that it's such a powerful thing, our hearts, and we're still understanding and learning so much more. There's the Heart Math Institute, Joe Dispenza's work. There's so much work that is putting, the spiritual concepts to it, the metaphysical, into the science of it, which helps a lot of people that are more analytical really understand, if you really understand how it works when it's measured in, scientifically and all that. So I think that's really cool. And our world is going through such a huge awakening and change. We've got so much going on in our world right now. I don't know if this is going to be out. This will probably be out after those elections. The Lord would help us. It's important to stay in the heart during and after, depending on who you want to be the leader of our free world. So it's good to stay in our hearts before that. And it's definitely good to stay in our hearts after, especially.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes. So you are the Heart Whisperer. I absolutely love that. And you created the Heart Coach Institute, where you certify coachings, and you just wrote the book, which will be out by the time this podcast is released, The Heart of the Gospel, Transforming Your Relationship with Jesus. I think that's a beautiful thing. So I would love to hear from you. How how this work came about, how this came about, where you were before, maybe. And I know you've been in a super long relationship. That's pretty amazing. That's something we'll dive into at some point. I do have a question later on in the podcast. You've been with
Okay.
somebody for 36 years and you have 4 children. 36 years nowadays, that's quite an accomplishment. Since
It's
you
a
were 13
miracle.
years
That's what
old.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, everything that's changed since then. My God. Before
Yes.
the flipping app world, which, yes. So, yeah,
Yes.
we would love to hear your story from you about what led you where you were and what led you to doing what you're doing now.
Well, thank you so much. Well, I probably arrived where I am the same place a lot of people get to this point of helping others heal is I had to find a way to heal my own brokenness. And I had a lot of childhood trauma that I really didn't know what to do with. Our house wasn't really conducive to exploring emotion or having the freedom to express. It was a really emotionally controlled environment. And so I just learned to shove everything down or try to ignore what I was feeling and going through. And it really wasn't until I was in my mid 50s that I went to some training called heart centered therapy. And it's a beautiful technique. But in the process of being in that training, I realized I was disconnected from my own heart. I didn't even know that was possible. But so many times when we have a lot of heartache and pain, when we connect to our heart, we connect into that pain and it hurts. And so it's easier to just disconnect from the heart. We can fully function from the mind. And even from the mind, we know what it looks like to look happy. We know when to laugh. We know all the social cues. You can act very happy and appear very fulfilled from the mind, but there's still this piece of you that's missing. As you know, this is the Awakened Heart podcast. So we all understand, but I started in that training building this relationship with my heart. And I had to learn how to trust my heart. I had to learn how to heal all that trauma and brokenness in my heart. It took me many years. And when I finally came out of it on the other side, I thought, oh my gosh, this did not need to take that long. I didn't know the steps. I didn't know what to do. And so then I started by creating a healing retreat to help others with broken hearts and the people that are really yearning to create that authentic heart connection, to be able to live freely from an open heart. And that retreat is called Bravehearts. And then it kind of went from there.
Yeah, the Bravehearts. Yep, I've got that here. The Heart Healing Program, Bravehearts. So, you had described your journey as one that ended a 20+ year battle with depression.
Yes.
Can you share the pivotal moments or experiences that led you to this profound healing?
Yes, I really, like I said, my upbringing didn't really offer me that possibility of healing through talking, through looking at it. I did go to a counselor once or twice, but for whatever reason, that wasn't helpful therapy for me at the
Was it
time.
just talk, 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 talk? Were
Yeah, a
they
lot of
offering
talk.
solutions? Yes. It's like,
Yeah,
"Can
and
you say something, please?"
I have a marriage therapist now, so we can talk about that later too. I'm not down on therapy. I'm just saying that wasn't working for me at that stage in my life. And so I didn't have anywhere to go. And I really did hit rock bottom where one day I just told my sister, I am done. Like I'm done with the battle. I'm done with the darkness. I'm done with the fight. I just need to, I just want a pill. I just want to be numb. I would rather be numb than feel what I'm feeling. I can't stand this anymore. And she said, you've got to try this one more guy. And so I just went to that one more guy and he wasn't a therapist. I don't even know what technique he used, honestly, but whatever he was doing, like NLP or something, it just my first point of emotional release where I literally felt this heaviness, this darkness that I've been carrying release from my body.
Mm.
And I think that's what I had been waiting for. Prior to that, I was trying to deal with everything in my mind, but I just really needed it to release from my body as well. And so in that process, I just started finding tool after tool after tool. Reiki was something, cranial sacral massage,
Mhm.
a lot of the holistic practices. And just step by step, I started finding my way out of that depression. But I think the pivotal, I mean, what I would tell someone else is just don't give up. There are answers out there for you, however you find them, however it shows up. Um, Keep looking because you'll
Mhm.
get there.
Mhm. Keep on the dark nights of the soul. There is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
What does being the heart whisperer mean to you, and how did you come to identify with this title?
It was fun. I actually had a business advisor that I was working with, and I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur. So I was a photographer. I was teaching Reiki. I was like doing like I had this wellness center. Like I had 6 businesses, and we put them all up on the board. And I just was feeling complicated about myself. I'm like, I do so many different things. I don't even know who I am. And we looked at all the businesses and he's like, I'll get back with you. And then about 3 days later, he called me back and he's like, Robin, you think you're so complicated, but you really only do one thing. Like, I have 6 businesses. What are you talking about? I only do one thing. And he said, Robin, your gift is to connect people to their heart.
Mhm.
And he said, I just put that you're the heart whisperer in my phone book. So I'm like,
My God, it's so perfect.
yes. I'm like, wait, can I be that? Could I claim that? And it was really special. It honestly took me about 6 months, I feel like, to live into that title and into that name. But I think really the gift I have is creating this safe container, this safe place. My heart is a safe place for people to connect with. And in the safety of my heart, they feel ready, open their heart and look at those hard things that maybe they just haven't felt ready to look at before. And so I think I do speak to people's hearts and it's a voice of hope and light and love. And I feel really honored that I get to help people heal their hearts.
What are some of the key principles or foundations of heart centered coaching? And why do you believe it's essential for creating meaningful change in people's lives?
Well, the answer to this goes back to something you said before, because you talked about we have the mind, we have the gut, we have the heart. We do have these 3 centers of knowing. And as I got trained in my life coaching, as I was trained to become a coach, I love the coaching principles because it really empowers people to find their own answers. We're not a mentor, we're not a consultant, we're not going to give you your answers or tell you what to do. My job as a coach is to support you and empower you to find your own answers. But so many of the coaching programs out there only rely on the mind and maybe
Mhm.
some tap into the body and the coaching as well. But I searched and I could not find a coaching program that could teach people how to listen to the heart and how to tap into that wisdom that you talked about
Mhm.
of the heart. And with all my training in heart centered therapy, I thought this has to be created. People have to learn this information. It's such a powerful asset. And so in the coaching program that I developed, we do have tools for the mind and we do tune into the body and we access all of who we are, but we also are able to tap into the heart. We teach people how to listen to the voice of the heart, how to really work in partnership with our heart to find those answers that they're searching for.
Mm, that's beautiful. That is beautiful, and that is how your Heart Coach Institute is heart-centered coaching because you've seen how a lot of them don't tie those pieces together, so you decided to
Yeah.
create this whole certification program to have people listen to that intelligence of the heart. And so that's what inspired you to create this kind of program,
Yes.
and that's how it's different from other coaching certifications. What are some of the key things that make this different from other types of certification programs?
Yes, and our program is accredited through the International Coaching Federation. So it's a level 1 education provider. And to some people, that credential is really important through the ICF. We do cover all the basics of coaching because we're accredited through the ICF. We have to provide that foundational messaging of or principles of coaching. All of that is provided. But in addition to that, we teach people how to tune into their heart, how to learn the voice of the heart, how to differentiate between the heart and the mind. So many times we ask ourselves a question and it's hard to know, like, is that my heart? Is that my mind? Like, who's speaking right now? Right. So to really be able to discern that voice and really have the courage to follow it. You also mentioned earlier that what we want is the mind and the heart to be at peace. And that's what I feel like we're trying to create through this coaching program. When we can get people into their heart, help them find those answers, and then partner the heart with the mind. So those two amazing parts of us can work in tandem and work together almost like a captain and co-captain. That's truly, I feel like when I have inner peace, when I'm finding that partnership and cohesion between the mind and the heart.
And you're trained in heart-centered therapy and trauma release. These are some of the modalities. How do they complement each other in the work with your clients?
Well, and my coaching can be a little bit separate. I really cover both ends of the spectrum. I
Mhm,
have my healing work, the Bravehearts program, and
mhm.
then the coaching work. But heart-centered therapy really was the basis of who I am and what I do in my healing work. And it's different than traditional talk therapy, like we mentioned earlier. And so I'm not a trained therapist, a
Mhm.
traditional trained therapist, but in this training, it teaches you again how to guide people into the heart, how to get them into the heart space. And then we're asking them questions, looking for those answers from the heart. And the crazy thing is, our mind, only 5% of it is conscious, and 95% of the mind is the subconscious.
Mhm.
So many times it's that subconscious that's driving our actions, our behaviors, our patterns, our beliefs. But you can't access the conscious mind from the subconscious mind. They're two different parts of the brain. And so you can't, it's hard from the conscious mind to heal something that is in the subconscious mind. But from the heart, we can access those subconscious beliefs, doubts, fears, experiences, the trauma. And so it's like the heart can bypass, sorry, um, those inabilities to change those deep rooted patterns and beliefs and behaviors from our childhood that are still haunting us. That decision you made when you were 7 years old that you weren't good enough because somebody else won that tug of war, like
Mhm.
you're still believing that we're not good enough. Your life is still being affected by a lot of those decisions in the subconscious. And so through heart centered therapy, we can access what's buried there, bring it to light, shift it, reframe it, and restore you to.
Mm.
And
And that
then,
bring Oh, go ahead. So ahead.
sorry, and then the trauma work is separate from that, but we all have trauma. It's just a beautiful, simple trauma release technique that I do as a client session for people that just need to release trauma. They can schedule, and I do a trauma
Mhm.
release with people, but it's also part of the Brave Hearts experience.
Okay. That was gonna be my next question, the Bravehearts program. So you're explaining what takes place within the, Braveheart program because you've helped hundreds of people heal their hearts and create the future that they love.
Yes.
So integrating all these things that you talk about makes it so effective for trauma release, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, I really feel like trauma was one of the last pieces that I found how to heal trauma, on my journey and all those tools I gained when I said it took so long, my healing journey. And then
Mhm.
when I got to the end, I'm like, oh my gosh, that could have been
Hmm.
so much more
Mhm.
efficient. I just didn't know what I
Mhm.
was doing. When I gained that ability to help people find healing for trauma, that actually became the first step because what happens with trauma is when we are triggered in our trauma, it shuts down the left side of our brain, which is our sequencing, our
Mhm.
logic, our rational mind, our timeline in our head. Trauma activates the right side, which is our emotion and creativity and all of that. So in a traumatic situation, without that timeline, it collapses that timeline in our mind. And something even small that can trigger us in this moment takes us back to the original trauma. And it's like it compounds all the emotion from that original experience onto this current moment. And so we feel and we react far more than the situation warrants. But it's because we're, unearthing that trauma
Mhm.
that's been buried there. And so for me, that was one of the things that made my healing journey so discouraging because I would take a step forward and think, oh, I'm getting this. And I'd take another piece. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get out of this depression. And then something would trigger my trauma. And it was like I was back at square one,
Mhm.
like I hadn't had any healing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought I had moved past this.
Yes. It's a spiral.
Yeah.
Well, what advice would you give to someone who feels stuck in their healing journey and isn't sure where to begin or if they've begun and they put work into it and like you said, they're back to square one? It feels like they've accomplished nothing. So what advice would you give someone? I mean, of course, you've felt it yourself, you've experienced it, and what would you tell them?
Well, I in my program, we address the trauma first, and I think that's a powerful place to start, no matter what method you choose to help support you in working through that trauma. But clearing out the trauma will really help you become more clear. You'll stay connected to your rational mind. Actually, trauma disconnects us from our heart. And so that's the other painful part for me when I'm triggered in my trauma. I lose access to that part of me that
Mhm.
to me is so valuable and powerful. So I would invite you to find relief for the trauma. Know that it can be helped and healed, definitely. But also, the first step that we go through in our program is just awareness. Like, we really
Mhm.
have to start looking honestly at where is this affecting my life? How do I respond? What are my emotions? What are the decisions I'm making? And my mentor, Alea Chickley, she said, what you can see and touch, you can heal.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so just by taking that time to really dial into awareness of what's going on, that's your first step to
Mhm.
being capable of healing it.
Mhm. And having some compassion for yourself and your process. Yeah.
Yes.
Patience too. Yes, and learning to trust, it's part of trusting your heart and yeah, leaning into that. I want to talk about the book that you have coming out, which will be out by the time this podcast is airing. Your upcoming book, The Heart of the Gospel, Transforming Your Relationship with Jesus, which sounds like a deeply personal and spiritual project. What led you to write this book and what message do you hope to share with readers?
Well, I feel like sometimes I am a religious person, but I feel like sometimes religion can put confines on Jesus that don't actually exist. And we can get so caught up in the am I righteous? Am I not righteous? Am I doing all the right things? Am I going to make it to heaven? Am I sinning? Am I not sinning? Like, does God love me today? Is he angry at me today? Like, I think there can be so much rhetoric that goes on in our head that has nothing to do with the gospel that Jesus taught.
I agree with that 1,000%.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
so I just felt a desire, even for myself, to just say, you know what? I've got to clear all this out and let's get down to the basics. And what is that gospel about? And it's so much just about love,
Mhm.
and even people say, well, it's about grace. Yeah, but what is grace about?
Mm.
Grace is the greatest act of love, you
Mhm.
know? So, and then if I want to live this gospel that he taught that was so incredible, what kind of heart do I need to have to be able to live that? And so the title kind of has a play on words and a little bit, what's at the heart of the gospel or what's at the center of what he taught? And what is that heart of the gospel that I need to have? What's the quality of heart I need to live in to be in harmony with his love and light?
Have you heard of the book Resurrecting Jesus? I read it by Adishante or something like that. She used to be a Buddhist monk for the longest time, and she had an experience where I think she saw Mary or something like that. And she writes like from his, I think it's through his passion, the passion of Christ, through the heart of the Buddha. It's really beautiful, and it goes right into like the heart of what his teachings are, not the religious standpoint. And it was a really beautiful book to read. It's, it's a pretty small book, but it was really good. It sounds along the lines of what your book is about.
That is actually on my list, but I
Oh, is it?
forgot about that.
Oh,
So
it's
thank
really
you
good.
so
You're
much.
welcome.
Yeah, I want to get that definitely.
Yeah, it's really good.
Definitely.
Well, good. That was a
Yeah,
reminder for you.
thank you. I appreciate that. And I really think at the heart of it, if you see God as our Father in this way, a father wants to have a loving relationship with his child.
Mhm.
I think we just interrupt that so often with, well, is he mad at me? Is he okay with me?
It's
Like,
not what it's about.
what is he? And I think he's like, enough. Can we all just talk about how much
Mhm.
I love you? Like, that's what
Mhm.
I want to talk about today.
Mhm.
And so, anyway, in the book, just transforming your relationship with Jesus, it's just really some practical ways and just lived examples of how to create a more personal and
Mhm.
intimate relationship with him.
And I think that's Jesus was an amazing, he was amazing human being. While he was divine, showing us what we all could be. His message was one of love and showing us who we are within ourselves, and we're created in his image. And I love my Jesus that way. I was raised Catholic, but it wasn't the hell and brimfire Catholicism. It was more Gnostic, where it was more mystical. God's a loving God. He's a forgiving God. And so at least I had that as the foundation. A lot of it didn't resonate with me, but I feel from what I feel is it was changed and bastardized to control the masses because all these there were so many people preaching the word of Jesus out there that, the church, okay, how can we put this together? And
Mm.
they'll be beholden to like whatever religion, whatever Christian religion they want them beholden to. So
Yeah.
it's such a personal relationship. And because a lot of people have those religious upbringings, they hear Jesus, they're like, oh, Lord, help us, Jesus. Lord, what is it like, what they might have grown up with in their own households. And so
Yeah.
even them using God or Jesus, I remember when I was first exploring my own spirituality, it was hard to say God and Jesus. Now I can say it
Mm.
and say I love them because it's my own relationship with them, not what
Yeah.
of the church doctrine dictates. So,
Yeah.
so it sounds like your Jesus, my Jesus are the same.
Yeah. So much love. So much love.
Yes.
Yeah. That's so great.
So, how can someone begin to transform their relationship with Jesus in a way that aligns with their heart's truth?
Well, what I feel is that our heart is that gateway to Jesus. It is
Mm-hmm.
the gateway to the divine. And we can learn about them in our mind. We can be inspired in our mind. The Holy Spirit can speak to our mind and our heart. But it says in the scriptures that the Holy Ghost dwells in our heart. The Holy Spirit
Mm-hmm.
is in our heart. And so part of what the book is talking about, like if I can heal and open my heart, I'm going to find this resonance with Jesus. Like if your heart opens to love, your heart opens to him. There's no way
Mm-hmm.
to be separate from that. I had a really powerful example of this. I had two new clients in one week, and both of them, they weren't together just independently. A man came in one week and a woman came in that same week. And both of them said, if it's okay with you, I don't want to talk about God. I don't have a relationship with him. I'm like, hey, that's fine with me. We're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about. And it was crazy because 3 months later, in the exact same week, after we'd have 3 months of healing the heart, both of them came into their appointment that week and said, I think if it's okay this week, I'd like to explore my relationship with God.
You
And
opened their heart. Oh my god. You cleared the space where he could dwell.
yes, and so it was a great teaching moment for me, that really
Mm.
our heart connection is our God connection. And so if you want to improve your relationship with God, improve the quality of your heart and you'll be there.
And how do you integrate this faith-based healing with people that might come from different spiritual backgrounds? Like they could tell you, "Oh, okay, I don't want to talk to him." And then he opened up his heart and he wanted to talk about God. So,
Yeah.
how do you work with somebody that might be agnostic or they might, learn about Buddha or whatever it is? It doesn't sound like
Yeah.
you're tied to one particular religion or something, but how would you, especially someone that might have negative experiences with faith and
Yeah.
still encouraging them to have a heart-centered approach?
Yes. Interesting. This brings up another topic. There's a lot of religious trauma out there.
Yes.
There's a lot of religious trauma. And so, for someone like that, I would start by healing the trauma, not so that they will then go join any religion or anything. I don't care what they do or choose, but it's that trauma that's going to keep us trapped in the past. I think we start with healing the trauma. I myself have had to heal some religious trauma. But then I think what also, when we connect into the heart, we connect into our own divinity
Mhm.
and our own eternal, whether you call it a soul or a spirit or I don't know what other words for it. But if people aren't comfortable with a divine being, then I'm happy to just help them recognize they have divinity within themselves.
Mhm.
And let's find that highest version of you. Let's
Mm.
find that pure hearted, most beautiful part where you can live in your truth and your passion and your purpose and your authenticity. All of that stems from the heart.
Well, I can see that your teachings, what you're doing, could be really helpful for a lot of. I wish something like this would go into the schools because I'm seeing this indoctrination that's happening with young kids, really young kids, where they should be just like let alone to play and figure out who they are instead of, you're born a sinner or you're born like, because your skin's a different color, you're born like flawed.
Yeah.
Parents are teaching their kids this at a very early age. How tragic is that? So this is something that you're doing really important work here to help people open their heart because it creates that whole ripple effect. You heal one person's help someone heal their heart, and then they, in fact, because that radiance outward, they influence somebody else on, even if it's not a conscious level, it's a subconscious level because they recognize, our hearts speak to each other. So you're
Yes.
creating ripples into the world with your work. So I honor and thank you for that. It's a
Thank you
beautiful thing.
so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
So, just a few more questions before we go. I'm going to just
Sure.
switch the gears a little bit. Something that I mentioned earlier on about your relationship. I think it's
Oh,
incredible because nowadays, like, hello, the singledom and like the app world and people not picking up a phone to call. So, you've been with your husband since you were 13 years old. So, 36 years still, or is it more now?
well, I met him when I was
You were met,
13.
right?
Yes,
Right. But
yes, and then we got married. I was 19 when I got
okay.
married. Yeah.
So, you guys
Yeah.
were together like
Oh,
39 years. Dating,
yeah.
or you knew him.
Yes.
Okay. Wow,
Yes.
that's incredible, especially nowadays, and you raised 4
Yes.
kids.
Yes.
So, that's truly an incredible, story about having you have the keys to maintain a long-lasting loving relationship. I know you said that you're in marriage counseling, which counseling is so good for whether, like, you have problems or not, getting in it together. It's such a really healthy thing to do as well. But
Yeah.
how has your understanding of love and relationships influenced your work as a coach, a life coach, and a healer?
Wow. I think lasting love takes a lot of patience and it takes a lot of sacrifice. But I think most of all, being in a long-term committed relationship, it's given me a lot of compassion. As I listen to the stories of my clients, they've gone through a lot of hard things that we have not dealt with in our marriage. And I just honor the very real struggles that are out there. And my own parents got divorced, and I'm so thankful they did. It was the best thing for their circumstance. And so just trying to force relationships to be committed, but being a slave to the relationship, being
Mhm.
a victim of the relationship. I don't feel that's what relationships are for.
Mhm.
And so just to be able to continually encourage people to find healthy ways to work through the challenges that come up in relationships because they will, and to really stay grounded and rooted back into the heart when there's conflict in relationships. The thing about the heart, which but the heart holds so much compassion, and the heart has compassion for other people, but your heart also holds compassion for you. And
Mhm.
so in relationships, when we're trying to set boundaries or solve conflict, a lot of times when we're in our head, it's, oh, but we're justified. I'll remember when they did this and oh, but this and this and this. They were so wrong. They knew to apologize. They knew,
Mhm.
like the head can be all about blaming the other person. And yet we can sink into the heart and say, wow, actually I played a part in that too. And I'm not happy with what just happened, but I can see where what I said could have even contributed to those negative feelings that they then had. And so I really value my heart as a key in my marriage relationship to helping me find truthful and compassionate resolutions that not only serve my best interest, but also the best interest of my husband. We're a
Mm.
team and we need to find things that support both of us.
What are some self-care practices you use to stay grounded and connected to your purpose, especially when supporting others like your family and then your and the clients that you work with, through their healing? What do you use to take care of yourself?
Nature is probably my
Mm.
biggest healer. We actually live right at the base of a mountain. And so I love to go hike. I love
Mhm.
to be out by water. Really love worship music, just music of praise. My favorite thing would be a sunny day on my road bike with my Christian
Mhm.
worship music blasting. And I'm just riding down some road by myself, singing at the top of my lungs. That fuels my soul so much.
Mm.
Yeah,
The
but,
base of what mountain?
just I'm here in Utah.
Okay. So
Um,
beautiful there. What part?
yeah, yeah, not far from Salt Lake, about 20
Okay.
minutes north of Salt Lake.
Okay, my friend has a place in what is that mountain?
Oh, Deer
Park
Valley?
City. Park
Oh, Park
City.
City.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Park City, she lives right by the downtown. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, so you're more in the more mountainous, like green treed. Because I've been to the Utah where it's just like such a different, like it looks like something prehistoric in a lot of areas, like all those canyons, the slot canyons, and the. I stayed in St. George, and then we went all over. We drove up from Sedona through Utah, and yeah, it's pretty spectacular. Nature is something that I use to
Yes.
connect to as well, and it's so important to me everywhere I lived. I've lived at the ocean, at the beach in California. Now I'm back in Michigan in the woods. I lived in Oregon, but everywhere that I look to live, I'm tied to the trees now. I like the ocean. It's nice, but I need my woods. Drop into the woods and, speak to the trees. I think they speak directly to our hearts.
Yes.
Nature, that's such a grounding experience. Well, I would love for, besides your book that's coming out, that will be out, where they
Yeah.
can find it on Amazon. I would love for my audience to know where to find you and how to work with you.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
This has been such an amazing interview. All your questions have been so thoughtful. I really appreciate this. So I have two platforms that you can find me on, obviously all the social media places, but my website, theheartwhisperer.com. If you go to theheartwhisperer.com, that's where you'll find all the information on my healing, my coaching with personal clients, my speaking engagements, and the book, all of that is there. But then you can also go to heartcoachinstitute.com, and that is my platform for my life coach training. And we train life coaches worldwide. So
Don't you have a
either of
free
those
meditation?
places.
I thought I went on here and saw.
Yes.
Yes. Yes,
Uh
you're
huh.
sign up for your free meditation, heart meditation, which I'm going to do.
Good. Good.
Yes.
I hope you love it. And then on Instagram, I've got the Heart Coach Institute on Instagram and also Robin the Heart Whisperer at Robin the Heart Whisperer on Instagram. And I'm on
Okay.
Facebook. Yeah.
Great. So you've got two of them. Okay. I'm going to make sure to link up with you on those platforms, and also I'll have them in my show notes. So just two more questions. I would love for some advice. What advice would you give to someone starting their journey as a coach or healer who feels called to help others heal from their past?
Yeah. I think the first step is to heal your own,
Mhm. Go
right?
through the
Because
whole
it
initiation.
it can
Mhm.
be somewhat inauthentic to think, well, I'm fine. I don't need to look at my stuff, but let me help you.
Mhm.
I'm going to take care of your
We see a
problems.
lot of people in the health industry, like the health industry, that do that. Or what do they call it? New age, the healing, meditations. Like, whoa, you're wacky. You're wacky as all hell.
Yeah. 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 And so I would say, and it's not like you got to heal everything before you can do that,
Of
but I
course.
would say be teachable, be humble.
Mm,
If you want to be a life coach, be an excellent coachee. Like allow yourself to be coached. So, and if you are in that healing vein, be willing to look at your own work.
mhm, mhm. It's so important to do that and to be integrity, because you feel out of
Yeah.
integrity if you're not preaching to someone else or trying to help someone else through theirs, but you haven't done your own work. So it's going into that initiation process within yourself through the work that you're teaching. So you don't have to be perfect, but you're still
Yeah.
practicing what you're preaching. So,
Yes. And I
mhm,
feel like sometimes even wanting to go into these opportunities, whether it's a coach or in some kind of healing profession, sometimes we do that as a divergence, like, or an avoidance
mhm,
of our own pain. I
mhm,
don't want to focus on this, so I'm going to look outward. And so I think it's important to look with.
mhm, mhm. Beautiful. Well, I have one more question before we wrap this up, and it's something that I ask everybody that is a guest on here, and it aligns with your work as the heart whisperer. And I would love to hear from you. I know you've already mentioned this throughout this podcast at some point, but we'll make it succinct in this one question. What does it mean for you to live with an awakened heart?
For me, it means living authentically and fully alive,
Mm,
just accepting all parts of me, not being afraid to be me, claiming all of my gifts, and having the strength and courage to be who I was meant to be here on this earth.
beautiful. And you've got such a beautiful smile. You're radiating.
You're so
You're
sweet.
radiating. Well, I think that sums it up so perfectly. I feel that sums it up because think and then feel. So I feel that is a beautiful ending to this wonderful conversation. And I just want to thank you again, Robin, for joining me today and all my listeners, our listeners on the Awaken Heart podcast.
Such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for the
You're
work you're
welcome.
doing and the message you're sharing about the heart. It's so
Thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you for doing this work. We're creating ripples in the world. Thank you. Have a great rest of your
Yeah.
day.
All right. You too.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Awaken Heart podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, head on over to your favorite podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can reach me at theawakenheartpodcast.com.